When I first started out with learning a new design tool, I always had this problem. After the first 1 to 2 minutes of the tutorial, I tend to fall asleep. So if you're just like me, then this tutorial might be just the one for you to learn how to use Figma, because I've created a design practice sheet that you can follow along as you're watching through the tutorial. By the end of this short tutorial, you should be able to use Figma and create your own low fidelity wireframe. To use Figma, just go to their website figma.com and then you can click on Get Started here or Get Started from the top right hand corner. So after clicking on Get Started, there will be a pop-up and then you can fill in your email address, type in the password, and then you can click on Create Account. So I've already created my account, so for this tutorial, I'll just jump straight into the app version. For Figma, you can use it on the web browser like this or in the app version. In this video, we'll be covering 4 sections: frames, drawing shapes, pen tool, and text tool. So these 4 things are actually found at the top of your panel here. So you have this for the frame, this for the shape, you can select rectangle, etc. For the pen tool, this is for the text tool, and then the other stuff, this is for resources. Think of it like Figma has a very big community. So let's say if you need any icons or things like that, you can always come to the resources section, click on plugin, and then search for it. We also have this tool for grabbing, like a hand tool. The keyboard shortcut is H. Otherwise, sometimes to move around, I will also press spacebar, and then I'll just like grab and move. Yeah. And then C, the last one, is for adding of comments. This is very useful if you are collaborating with other designers also. Let's jump straight into it. Frames. So what is frames? Think of frames as artboard. So just now we were over here, right? This is where you can select the frame. Section and slicing we will not be covering today because these are things that you can use in the future, but it's not super necessary. It's more for like when you're exporting your Figma file. So for now, we focus on frame. When you click on frame or use the keyboard F, you will see on the right hand panel that these are all the different custom frames that Figma has already provided for you. So you have the phone frames. So these are all the different phone sizes, the tablet sizes, desktop, presentation, watch, paper, social media, etc. So I've already highlighted for you the frames that I always like to use. However, if you are doing this for a project, it also depends on your project. So you need to check what are the kind of devices your users are using and design with that in mind. So for my own personal project, I like to go for desktop 1440 by 1024, which is this one. And you can find it under desktop here. And then for iPhone 13, for phone sizes, I like to go for iPhone 13 mini, which is 375 by 812. So usually when we are designing for phone devices, we try to go for the smallest phone devices. Over here, you can see that there are even smaller ones, which is iPhone SE, that is 320 by 568. However, the reason why I don't go for iPhone SE is because a lot of phones in the market right now is just I think the smallest one that people are using is already 375, and this is more of like an outlier. So I tend to go for iPhone 13 mini when I'm designing. Then I will scale up for bigger screens if I do need to do that. So these two are my preferred frames. And then for this tutorial, we are using 1280 by 832. Or you can just, let's say if you are trying to play around with frames yourself, you can also randomly draw any size. It doesn't really matter. So how do you see that the frame tree is 1280 by 832? Is when you just click on escape first to get out of the frame selection, and then you can click on the artboard or the frame, and you can see the size from here. The width is 1280, the height is 832. To draw your own frame, you can click on keyboard F, right? And then you can see that there's a cross. My cursor is replaced by a plus button, a plus icon. So I can just start drawing my frame like this. Yeah, so I can draw any size that I want. So this will be my artboard, whereby I start putting my boxes and squares and whatnot. So if you want to make changes to your frame, you can make the changes over here. For example, I can change this to 600 by 600. So this becomes like a square, and I can lock the dimension here. Once I lock it,
And if I want to change the size proportionally, I can hold down shift and then I can change it like this. Another way to change the size is by dragging it at the sides like this. So this is how you create and use frames. Next, we move on to drawing simple shapes. So this is the second tool over here. I've already created some shapes for you. I'm just gonna lock it for now so that we don't touch it. To create a square, first we need to click on this, which is, they call it a rectangle, because like this is rectangle, but when you hold down shift, it becomes a square. So this is how we create a square. And then to create a rectangle, you can also press the keyboard shortcut R, and this will allow you to create a rectangle. Next, let's create a star. So to create a star, you just click here. Again, you need to hold down shift so that you lock the star in shape. And then there's a cuter looking star over here. To do that, let's say if I don't want to draw the star again, I can click on Command D, so another layer of the star appears, and then I will shift it over. I can increase the size of the star, right? And I can increase the radius of the star to make it cuter, like this. And then this thing, this curve area is actually for this area. So by increasing it, I make the star look more and more like going towards a circular shape. So let's say if you need to create any rating score section, you can create cube stars using this method. Okay, and then let's move on. To create a circle, we call that an ellipse here. So you can click on ellipse, hold down shift, and then this is how you can create your circle. If you don't hold down shift, if you don't hold down shift, it will just be a random oval. So if I click on shift, it will become a circle. Okay, to create this Pac-Man version, you can do this. Place the circle on top, and then I will just zoom in a little so you can see that there's a circle here. They call it the arc. So you can just drag and then stop. So this is how you create a Pac-Man version. Next, let's duplicate this. We want to create this thing, right? This circle looking thing that you might have seen inside grass before. So to create that, you just need to drag the center of this, and that's how you create this shape. And then we duplicate again by Command D. The next shape that we're trying to mimic is this circular area at the angle. So to do that, we just need to increase the circle size here, the radius, and that's how you get this angle. I will delete everything and you can try out on your own later. Next, let's move on to how to create complex shapes. So you can actually create your own icons or complex shapes inside Figma. So how you can do so is, I have a polygon here. A polygon is actually like a triangle, right? So there's a polygon, and then I've also created a rectangle here. So a polygon plus a rectangle together. I select both layers. I go to the top. I click on Union Selection, and that is how it becomes a single vector like this, like a house. So I'm gonna undo this so you can try that yourself later. Let's say if you need to create maybe a leaf icon for your project, you can think of how is the leaf going to be shaped. For example, it's two circles. You select the two layer, you go to the top again, and then you play around with this. So for example, it's called intersect. So it becomes like this, which is a leaf, and then you can rotate it to the angle that you want. By holding down shift, the angle increases by 15 degree. So if you look here, as I shift it, it increases by 15 degree. However, the moment I remove shift, it will be freeform. Yeah, so whenever I'm trying to do rotation, I like to hold down shift. So now I'm gonna undo everything, and you can try out on your own later. Next, we move on to the pen tool. So sometimes in projects, you might need to create a very organic shape. For example, like this block. There are two ways that you can do that. One is you can just go to this website called blockmaker.app. So this is the Blockmaker app. You can increase the number of angles that you want to give to your block, or you can decrease it. You can also play around with how fluid your block is going to be. So for example, like this is more towards a circle, and then more towards the right is more like the weird and dynamic shape. And let's say you already set everything up nicely, you just don't like maybe this shape, you want to change it up a little bit, you can go on to here and then just click on it, and then you will come up and generate all the different blobs for you. And to use this, you just click on download here. So for our example, I've already downloaded a blob here, but now let's say I don't like this blob, I want to create my own blob, right? How can I do so? I can use the pen tool at the top, click on P for shortcut, and then I can start to create my own shape like this. So let's say if I have to do some tracing, I can also use it like this. Usually when I'm using the pen tool, I will block all the overall shape in first, then after that I will go in and play around with the handles over here and see how I can make it more perfect. So that's how I'll play with it. It's Command Z, escape. So you can take your time to play around with the pen tool. You need some time to master this tool. To change the stroke and fill, because right now what I'm trying to create is a filled version instead of a stroke version, I can just use my keyboard shortcut Shift X, and the stroke and the fill will swap automatically. Otherwise, I have to click on plus, add the fill, use the eyedropper tool, or I can click on copy, Command C here, and then click here, Command V, and then hit enter. And that's how I do it. So to save you some time, if you want to change the fill and the stroke, just use Shift X. Let me show you again, Shift X. You need to, because right now my stroke is, there's also a stroke. Okay, so if there's only a fill, you want to change it to a stroke, Shift X, it becomes a stroke. Shift X, it becomes a fill. So that's how you change it. Gonna delete this, you can try out later. Next, let's learn how to pick colors. So to pick colors, I kind of showed you just now already. You can use the eyedropper tool. So for this, I want to change this gray into a pink color. So I select the fill, click on this box, and then there's the eyedropper tool here. And then I can pick the color, so it becomes that color. Another way to pick colors is with the keyboard shortcut for eyedropper, which is I. So once you select this rectangle, click on I, and then just select this. So that's how you pick colors. Next, let's talk about gradient. To play around with gradient, you have to click on the fill, select the second box here, and this is for gradients. So to play around with the first color, so the color that there's a blue bounding box, this is the color that you have selected. And then, so if I selected the other one right now, yeah, this will get selected. So now I want to change this to a dark blue color. I click on the eyedropper tool, and I click here, and then the lighter one, I will click here. So that's how you can play around, mess around with the gradients. Next, let's move on to gradient to transparent. So this is actually one of my favorite way to add like a darker kind of gradient onto images so that I can add my text like this. So if I shift it up, you will be able to see that there is a gradient here, and then this is the image. Just by placing text on the image is a bit too bright, it's hard for the text to be read. So I like to place a layer of gradient on top of my images so that the text is more readable. So to do that, you just need to click on fill, click on this again, the second one, and then you can change it. So the top one is usually transparent, so you can increase it to white, change the opacity to 0, and that is how you can create your gradient. So you can see this is how it looks like. So usually after I created my gradient, I will also sometimes mess around with the opacity of the overall layer. So you can play around with this. I'm going to undo everything so that you can practice later. Let's move on to the next one, text. So text it sounds very simple, but actually think of it like your Microsoft Word or your Google Documents. So you already know that there's this thing called like a typeface, or maybe you know it as Times New Roman or Arial. Yeah, this is called a typeface. And then there's the weight, and then there's the size. So these three things are probably something that you have seen inside typical Word documents. Yeah, but for Figma, you get a lot more control than this. Text itself is a whole topic by itself. Yeah, so for now, we will just cover on how you can manipulate the text inside Figma. Okay, so when I click on the text view like this is T stands for text layer. So when I click on T, that text view, you can see on the right hand side, this is where you can see the screenshot that I have here. So you can play around with the fonts. You can change the font from here, right, the typeface, and then you can change the weight here, and then you can change the size here. I'm just gonna undo everything. So to create your own text, you just need to click on T. This is my text. Whatever you have selected previously, the Figma will remember the previous version that you have selected, and then your next text that you create, the text layer, will inherit all these kind of like properties. So if you don't want that, you want this version, you can select this layer, right click, and then click on copy properties. Then you select the layer that you want to change, and then click on paste properties. So yeah, this is an easy way for you to quickly copy the text, how it looks like for your other copies. Yeah, so I'm going to delete this. So I have a few examples here for you: title, subtitle, and body copy. So these are all made with Source Sans Pro. It's just that the typeface is Source Sans Pro. It's just that I played around with the weight and the weights and the size a little bit to give like some form of hierarchy. Let's talk about all the other stuff over here. I'm just gonna duplicate this. Okay, line height. When we increase the line height like this, you can see that the overall bounding box of this text also increased. Usually we don't increase or play around with this too much. Yeah. So to change it back, you can click on auto. You can type auto, then you will change it back to the original one. And then this thing is called letter spacing. Letter spacing is the space in between each of your letter. So when you increase it like this, it becomes more spaced out. Yeah, and then next one is for paragraph spacing. So paragraph spacing is a bit similar to line height. It's just that it's easier to show you. Okay, so let me set my letter spacing back to 0. Okay, I will just duplicate this a little bit and then hit enter. So when I increase my my paragraph spacing like this, it will increase the space in between. And then let's say because my text is like this, right? So right now, this is the paragraph spacing, paragraph 1, and this is paragraph 2. So in between, the paragraph spacing of 10. And then for line height, this is slightly different because this is the height from the first line to the second line, from here to here. So if I decrease the line height, you can see that this overall decreases. The height decreases, but the spacing here between the first paragraph and the second paragraph is what I have set, which is 10. So I can still increase it. The second entire paragraph will shift down. And then this is the line height. Yeah, so if it's a bit confusing, you can play around with it later. Just create 2 paragraphs of text like this, and then you play around, and you should be able to get it already. Then, let me undo that. Next, we cover bounding box. So bounding box stands for this thing that you see here. There is the auto width, there is auto height, and then there is fixed size. So auto width, think of it, when you click, right, everything will become like, it will take up the entire sentence. So the width of the bounding box will take up the entire sentence before you hit the enter on your keyboard. Whereas for auto height, we call this the auto height is because when you change the bounding box like this, the height changes dynamically, but the width is something that you are controlling. You never control the height. So to explain this even better, okay, let me just shift it up. To explain this even better, is another example is this one, right? Let's say you have a fixed size. So when you click on fixed size, you see when I shift the width and I make it smaller, some of the text move down and is outside of the bounding box. By setting auto height, the height will fill up, will hug the height of the contents, and the height is not fixed. So play around with this. This concept is quite important, especially when we are applying this in auto layout, which I'll be covering later on in another video. And then next one, let's talk about alignment and then also the bounding box alignment. Duplicate this. Okay. So just now we talked about the bounding box size, right? So right now I expanded the size of this text layer, so it becomes auto height. And then with auto height, I will be able to play around with this alignment, left, center, right. See, this is left align, this is center, and this is right. This is left align, this is center, and this is right. And then how does this alignment come into play? This is what I call the bounding box alignment. So let's say, because right now the bounding box is the same height as the title, right? As a sentence, if I increase the size of this, then I can play around whether it's the top or middle or bottom align. Yeah, so I can still play around with this also. So if I want it to be totally center, I can put middle and middle. So this will be in the center. Okay, that's it for this video. Now let me show you how you can download this practice file. To download this file, click on the link in the description below and you should come to my Gumroad page. So it will look something like this. Click on $0. Yeah, then you can click on I want this. And then fill in your email address and click on Get.
Anyway, that's it for this video. If you found it useful, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below and I'll see how I can help. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!